Hello and welcome to the Tour Report from Secret Golf. Well, this week it's the RBC Canadian Open. But before we get into all that, Elk, you and I just hit the record button for the show this week. And this monumental announcement has come from the PGA Tour. PGA Tour, DP World Tour and LIV Golf are merging.
I just can't believe my eyes, Diane. I've been talking to a few people in the industry, a few people that work at the PGA Tour, and they were very hush-hush about this, never heard a peep about it. Also, Greg Norman, as you can recall, has been very quiet, so has Jay Monahan. So obviously, this has been, in the works. I mean, it's got to be good for golf, right? It's got to be good if I think I always said, Diane, that LIV works really well in the rest of the world. And the tour, where they really get conflicted is when they're playing in Tulsa and in Fort Worth on the same weekend. That's where it seems that everybody just freaks out. Yeah. Well, what if there's a new model, Diane, where these good players can go all over the world and make golf better everywhere? Is that going to be better? Of course it is. So
I know that your phone is going crazy right now. So we're going to be, obviously we're going to dive into our tour report for the RBC Canadian Open, and we'll touch on Memorial last week. But obviously as stuff develops, we're going to be talking about it here. But I've got the announcement that is on the PGA Tour website. PGA Tour, DP World Tour and the Public Investment Fund today announced a landmark agreement to unify the game of golf on a global basis. They signed an agreement that combines the PIF's golf-related commercial business and rights, obviously LIV Golf, with the commercial businesses and rights of the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. Jay Monahan has said, after 2 years of disruption and distraction, this is a historic day for the game we all know and love. I'm just going to jump right to this because I was scrolling, like, what does this mean for the players? What does this mean for Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, Ian Poulter, the guys that have... They were playing PGA Tour, DP World Tour. They had to resign their memberships. They obviously got huge signing bonuses for going to LIV. They've been making all this money. And at the end of the 2023 season, it said they're going to establish a fair way for these guys to be able to reapply for membership back on these original tours. So the guys that took the money and went to LIV, Phil Mickelson maybe was right all along. They have to be sitting there in a great situation right now.
Well, I'll get to what it's going to mean to the top players, but Diane, I think this is really going to help the bottom players because there was so much animosity with the lower tier players. When I say lower tier, we're talking about the best players in the world here, 150 or 200 of the best players on earth, maybe playing the PGA Tour. And there was this real distinct, earthquake zone right here. If you're in the top 60 next year, you were going to be playing for 20 million, no cut. And then if you were below 70, you were going to be playing for 8 million with a cut. And the lower tier players were like, how can I become a great player? How can I get into the top 30 on the money list when there's 60 guys above me playing for 2.5 times the money with no cut? They can't not make money. So a lot of dissension there, Diane. I think there was just pressure from everywhere. I mean, Monahan was on one side, Greg Norman was on the other, DP was on the other. Of course, you just noted all the good players, they're going to be able to do whatever they want, as they always have. We've always been able to go do whatever we wanted to. But I think it's very exciting because when I start to think of, some of the tournaments in your part of the world, whether you're thinking about the tournament in London at Wentworth, or the Scottish Open, or the Irish, or think about now the Australian Open. Yeah. How big are these tournaments going to be? China, Japan. I mean, or Toronto this year, or Canada. Imagine everyone, all three tours have a way of getting into all these big events, and they'll be all over the place all the time. And it's going to be a great time to be a tour player. I was texting with another old tour player, and he said, I've got to go practice right now. I can't talk about it anymore.
So really, it must mean more money because we know that the Public Investment Fund, the Saudi part of this, they have got so much money that they were really throwing into LIV Golf. So it's got to mean more money overall for everyone in this new entity. And also, if the guys have to play this required number of events on the PGA Tour. What is it, like 15 a season? Are they going to be able to do that all over the world? So like pick and choose which ones they're going to play in.
It's going to be interesting to find out. Will there be a team aspect? Will the PGA Tour have 2 or 3 teams? Look, I've been saying all along to you, I love the team aspect. My son's been to 2 or 3 LIV events. I haven't been, but I'm good friends with guys on teams. And it's very important to them. And it seems to me that it's working very well. Why don't you read the announcement there? I think it says that the PIF fund is going to make a huge investment into the tour. Yeah. A board to be announced. But I guess my point there was, I didn't see Greg Norman's name on that board, Diane. That must have been part of the deal. And that could have been a deal breaker. Maybe it was too much for Monahan to have them all together. And they've just said, hey, we'll do the deal, but so-and-so, Yeah.
Jay Monahan did mention the team aspect. He said this transformational partnership recognises the immeasurable strength of the PGA Tour's history, legacy and pro-competitive model, and combines it with the DP World Tour and LIV, including the team golf concept, to create an organisation that will benefit golf players, commercial and charitable partners and fans. So he has mentioned the team element is going to be part of it moving forward. Huge. We know that the Tiger Woods deal is coming on board. There's going to be sort of a arena golf coming on next year. This dwarfs that, but that was a team deal. Mm-hmm. So, here we go, Diane. I mean, I can't imagine being on the driving range Toronto today or at the golf course and listening to this. Yeah, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how tour players on both sides, I mean, I guess all 3 sides are going to unpack this and what their views are going to be. And I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of that this week. And then next week, obviously, at the US Open. But you're right, it has to be, because there's this kind of weird grey area right now that if guys finish outside the top 50 or the top 70 and they're not going to be in these designated events moving forward, what those guys are going to be doing. Playoffs are only for the top 70 instead of the top 125. So you're right, there's this area for golfers now who have to see this as there's going to be more money, more events, more opportunity pumped in. This can only be a good thing for everyone.
I think so, yeah. And there's going to be a lot of backpedaling in the next 48 hours from either Golf Channel, or I know Brooks Koepka's already tweeting at certain Golf Channel employees to try to get their mind wrapped around this. We all were so surprised about that $2 billion buying of the Smash team. Did they know what was coming down the track? Now this could be just a whole different opportunity. Where is Nike in front again, where they're going to buy a team that goes worldwide across all tours? I mean, this deal has obviously been in the works for quite a while.
Adidas, obviously with Dustin Johnson.
Nobody's denied any of those numbers. That's what was surprising to me.
The other thing is, and you mentioned Golf Channel, and there's been a couple of Golf Channel hosts who have been very vocal about the fact that their disdain has really laid in the fact that this money has come from Saudi and it morally goes against everything they stand for. So obviously now, with everyone being in bed together, they're going to have to address that, because they've made these comments globally for the last 2 years. So it's going to be the reaction. We're obviously talking about this very, very fresh as it's been announced. And I'm really going to be tracking the reaction over the next couple of days, because this is the announcement that we were kind of all waiting for, hoping for, to rid of the animosity, because it's in a way been ruining the sport.
Look, we talked about last week, and by the way, I'm like the stock market thinking. I only think ahead. I'm not going to go back and listen to what they said before. I'm only want to hear about what's going ahead. But, when you think about the PGA Tour, and the PGA was great with Brooks Koepka, and there was this sort of, even you felt that the Michael Block, almost they had to push that window a little higher up than they did almost Koepka, just because they're sort of not affiliated, so to speak. But look, I was talking to some of the people that work at the tour, and they know who are the big 5 in your mind at the PGA Tour, Diane. Who are the ones that really move the needle? I'll help you. Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler.
Oh, the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
John Rahm.
I don't want to miss anyone out. I'm just trying to come off the top of my head.
Justin Thomas,
Hovland, and then there's quite a bit of a drop, right, to the next tier, right? The next tier might be the Will Zalatoris that have one win, although they're pushing him pretty hard, that kind of thing. But then when you go over to LIV, they've got the same big stars. I mean, whether you like it or not, they do. Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, Cam Smith, these other players that are massive, pull in massively for the tour. I've talked about it on one of our shows. It's been tough for the Houston Open here they don't want to put their money into the $20 million deal. They're not happy with that deal. They did an $8 million deal because they want to put money back into the community. They want to give $5 million. And the tour said, hey, we want you to come into the $20 million deal, but you got to put another $15 million in. And they said, if we put 15 in, we're going to go -8 to the charity. We're not doing that. So something had to give, Diane, and obviously it did. Rory McIlroy, of course, we'll get onto the memorial, but he made an odd statement last week where he said he wasn't sure that the majors were paying enough money. And I would never say this because I don't have the platform that Rory does, but we've always thought that the majors didn't pay enough money. Even at the PGA, Diane, at Oak Hill a couple of weeks ago, 80 guys that were there went away with zero. And they were there pretty much the whole week. They entertained a bunch of people by watching them. They don't get $5,000 for their travel. They don't get anything. He's right about that one. So maybe Rory going quiet, Diane, now we know in the last month had something to do with this.
Yeah.
What do you make of Rory? Why don't you make of that? And then why don't you give me his breakdown of what's going on with Rory at the Memorial? Had the lead.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Rory is he after the Masters disappointment, we saw him really take a step back. He took some time to himself, and he then went very, very quiet when he was asked anything about LIV and the PGA Tour. He said openly that he wasn't going to comment on it anymore. So this has obviously been in the works for a long time, and Rory being part of the inner workings of the PGA Tour has been very aware of this, no doubt. Phil Mickelson tweeted, "Awesome day today."
Yeah. It's not going to be a great day for Rory McIlroy. He's been very tough on all that.
Yeah. Joel Damon just tweeted, "I've grown up being a fan of the Four Aces. Maybe one day I'll get to play for them on the PGA Tour."
He was tough. He was tough on those guys.
Yeah.
He said something like, if Brooks Koepka wins a tournament on LIV, like a tree in the forest, does it make any noise? Well, that's been a bad.
Hey, but this is very telling, and we know that some of the PGA Tour players have felt that they've maybe been kept in the dark. Colin Morikawa, who's definitely one of the big names, has tweeted.
Yes, we left him out a minute ago.
He said, "I love finding out morning news on Twitter." So that's a little bit controversial.
Yeah. Well, I think they had to do it this way. I think at the end of the day, Diane, this was a scattered product, and LIV is gaining traction, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. They're gaining a massive amount of traction. They have two of the current major winners currently on their roster, Cam Smith at the Open, and Brooks Koepka is going to carry that for a whole calendar year. Mm-hmm. Diane, I won the PGA, and one of the great things about winning the PGA is you get to be a champion the longest. You all the way to the next year. When you win the Masters, you only get it for a month until someone else is the hottest pancake on the griddle. So, yes, I think.
My mind's racing 100 miles an hour here, and I'm going to contradict something I said, because I said on one hand this could be great for the players in that there's going to be more events, more chances, more money. But on the other hand, going by Colin Morikawa's tweet, maybe some of the guys are not very happy today, because realistically a lot of them have been vocal. They've defended the PGA Tour, they've stuck their neck on the line, they've turned down money, they've changed their schedules, they've had to play in more events with these elevated events, and now all of a sudden, hey, we're merging, we're going to be one big happy family. So there is going to be some disdain, there's no question.
No, there's no doubt. The way you fix that is the tour will talk about the money on the top of a pyramid when they do this, and then they will go down from there. They're not going to backtrack. They're going to go, here's what's on the table for you guys. this is what it is. I mean, look, Colin Morikawa is one of the best players out there. He's going to be on the tour for his peak. He's going to be good for another 15 years, and then there'll be more guys coming along, just like I went through, just like whoever. Freddie Couples with another one. He just came to my mind. He's been very critical. There's a lot of guys, but we're going to see how all this shakes out. I'm sure you're reading along, and you're going to catch a bunch of live tweets here. But I mean, you know where I've been on this all along. I have not been critical of anything. We've been doing shows here where we've been covering LIV and covering the tour on the same episode, and people have just really enjoyed our transparency of just following good golfers.
Yeah, I'm just following this, as you said. Big takeaways right now. Greg Norman's name not being mentioned in the official statement.
The board.
So no mention of him at all in it. The fact that the players were not told and they were finding out this news on Twitter. That's definitely a huge talking point. The biggest one has to be 2 little words, Ryder Cup. And what is this going to mean in September?
Well, it's going to mean that they're all going to be eligible again, of course. Now, to me, and you don't like it when I bring this up to you, but the European Ryder Cup team is probably just like when Australia plays England or Australia plays Scotland in football or rugby. The Europe team is on paper the weakest it's been in years. Your veterans have all sort of, I don't want to say past their prime, because, you know, when you think of the Ryder Cup, you think of Sergio and Poulter and Westwood and all these guys. But you must admit they're not as strong as the American team right now. You got absolutely poleaxed up at Whistling Straits. You were there. You witnessed it. The American teams are very, very strong. Europeans, having said all that, Diane, you need all the eligibility that you can get, is my point, I think, to this.
But the other thing is, there's been, and maybe it's going to be water under the bridge, but people have said things about other people that could potentially be playing on the same team. I mean, I'm thinking of Ian Poulter, Lee Westwood, extremely vocal. Sergio Garcia, extremely vocal about the PGA Tour as well. And they're all going to be back together playing in a team of happy campers. So that, I mean, going forward, eyes on the Ryder Cup, that's going to be a huge story. There's so much to take in.
I've told you this, and all of our people that work for us, the people that work for us, never talk poorly about another tour player, their decision to earn their living. So we've never done that here. So yes, there's going to be some problems going forward. Pat Perez has taken it the most from every angle, how terrible a player he was. And he's just sort of revitalized himself over there at LIV because he's lost 30 pounds. He's playing great golf. He's on the best team on there. He's counting almost every week on every round. He's changed. Isn't that what the tour really needs, Diane? Meaning that not Pat Perez, but don't you need more energy as you get a bit older to sort of keep going? And will this be, a world tour now, or they all three stay separate and they move around? I'm sure there'll be some events that they all play. But look, I know one of the points this reason this happened. The good players on the PGA Tour are exhausted, and they realize now the mistake they made, this being Monahan at the top, that they wanted every top player to play every big event, and every one of them are going to play the same schedule. Mm-hmm. That's not the way to do it, because they can't do it. Kids got to go, they got to have breaks. They got to go on, whatever. Yeah. Not working.
Jay Monahan is doing a press conference at the Canadian Open, 4:00 today, so 4 p.m. on Tuesday. So we will see what he has to say. He's no doubt going to be asked about Greg Norman's involvement. Do you think maybe, and this is me, this idea just came, do you think maybe they paid Greg out and they were like, we don't want him involved anymore?
I do not. I think Greg will be I just don't think he's going to be on this board. I don't know this. I texted Greg already today to congratulate him, because he actually has been, rewarded with what his move has been done. He's now brought the world game together, whether you like it or not. He has, and he has taken more flack than anyone, Diane, I think he'll be the commissioner of the LIV Tour. Honestly, I think the players love him. He signed every one of them. They all have a tremendous amount of respect, and he's a player's player. He knows what the players need and do.
Yeah, and he's worked bloody hard on this for a long, long time, you know, and he's been the public figure that people have been taking shots at, and you know, he's put everything on the line for this, let's be honest, idea that he had decades ago. So you know, it would be he should almost be rewarded for the work that he's put in, and how hard he's worked to get to this stage. Yeah,
I think we'll hear more at 4, but again, I don't think Monahan's going to do any of that way. I think it's going to be talking this way.
Okay. Whoa.
Did you know what I meant when I did that?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be talking backwards. I think they're going to be talking
forward. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what we're going to do.
A lot of people, and I'm not going to name names, but a lot of people in the media are going to have to swallow that. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow, and they're going to have to look at it as, right, this is the way it is moving forward. Elk, I'm sad for you. It means that you might not get to watch LIV Golf on the CW anymore. I know it's your favorite channel on TV.
Well, it's my favorite channel because my favorite show is Whose Line Is This Anyway? is a comedy show where all the jokes are made up on the spot. And my favorite comedian is Colin Mockery from Canada.
Oh, so that was a fantastic segue into what we're going to be talking about now. We will revisit this if more stuff comes up over the next couple of days, because, you know, thank you. I know people do like to hear what we say, especially what you say, Elk, about LIV Golf. So it'll be fun for us to really keep this going.